Extraordinary things happen all the time, and we don't discount something we have good evidence to believe simply because the odds of past observation are stacked against it. One of the central reasons why people doubt the Christian story, it has to do with all the weird supernatural claims. For secular people, the story about a giant fish eating Jonah, that can be seriously hard to swallow. And even for lifelong believers, some of the stories just seem unbelievable. Am I really meant to rationally accept that Jesus could dance on the Sea of Galilee or solve world hunger with a single bread roll? You see, the skepticism, it's just hard to shake. When Richard Dawkins debated John Lennox, two of these Oxford professors going head-to-head on the God question, Dawkins found it utterly inconceivable that Lennox believed Jesus was virgin-born. Exasperated, Dawkins questioned, how can a man of science believe such a thing? Now, Dawkins may not be a poster child for a philosophically robust atheism, but nonetheless, his question resonates with a huge number of people, believers and doubters alike, who have imbibed the common notion that science has disproved miracles. So given that the Christian story falls apart if Jesus did not rise from the dead, what are we to make of scientific objections to the supernatural? Can you rationally believe in miracles? Were you to trace back the genealogy of skepticism on these questions, historically speaking, the case against miracles finds its most prominent voice in the 18th century Scottish philosopher David Hume, particularly in Book 10 of his Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. However, despite the skeptical hype, the truth is there are some serious problems with Hume's problem of miracles. First, take what we might call the logical version of Hume's problem of miracles, where in effect Hume argues that miracles, by definition, are impossible. The syllogism would go something like this. Premise 1, the laws of nature are inviolable. Premise 2, miracles violate the laws of nature. Therefore, conclusion, miracles are impossible, for you cannot violate the inviolable. The problem with this argument, though, is that it assumes what it is trying to prove, because it assumes that our universe is a closed system. Now, if God doesn't exist, then sure, the universe may be a closed system, for there is no one to reach in from the outside. But if God does not exist, then the universe, it's not a closed system, which is why many of the scientific revolutionaries spoke of natural laws as merely descriptive of how God normally governs the universe. And so they do nothing to stop him from doing something special if he wants to feed in a new creative event. C.S. Lewis responded to Hume's argument with a clever analogy. Say tonight you go to bed and you put $10 in the nightstand. Tomorrow you put in another 10, only to wake up the next morning and find there is only $5 in the drawer. What would you assume? That the laws of arithmetic had been broken, or that the laws of Australia had been broken? You see, that an outside agent would reach in and meddle with the contents of this drawer, that seems the only obvious choice. And just like the laws of arithmetic don't stop the thief from meddling in the drawer, but rather expose when he has, so too the laws of nature. They don't constrain God from performing a miracle. They are the very thing that allows us to recognize when he does something special. So science does nothing to disprove miracles. Rather, science and supernaturalism walk hand in hand, with science painting the backdrop of nature's regularity, against which God's special message, a miracle, can ultimately be received. So the logical problem of miracles, it falls down. For if you simply grant the possibility of Genesis 1:1, that in the beginning God created everything, then anything is possible. So that's strike one for the problem of miracles. Second, Hume's more formidable version of the argument was more of an evidential one, where even if miracles were possible, you are never rationally warranted to believe in them. Why? Well, because in Hume's language, a wise person proportions their beliefs to the odds. But, he argues, since miracles are singularities, they're unrepeatable and they're rare, and since they're only ever attested by human witnesses, well, that testimonial evidence can never outweigh the universal scientific observation of the regularity of nature. And so, wise people should reject miracle claims. In other words, because our scientific observations say dead people stay dead, the testimony of Jesus' disciples should not be believed when they claim he was resurrected. The historical evidence for the miracle can never be good enough to outweigh the scientific odds. This is basically the line of reasoning you'll find in Carl Sagan's infamous dictum, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence," which has become kind of a mantra used on the internet by skeptics to shut down supernatural claims. Of course, no one ever defines what they mean by extraordinary evidence, or explain how providing supernatural evidence for a supernatural claim can ever escape this infinite loop of suspicion. But usually the dictum just becomes a shield, one wielded to deflect any amount of evidence you can muster and simply dismiss it as not extraordinary enough. But even secular philosophers today, along with Hume's own contemporaries, they point out a number of serious errors with this approach to assessing probability. For starters, what makes something an extraordinary claim? If all you mean by extraordinary are singularities that are unrepeatable and rare, well then the Big Bang or me winning the lottery are by definition extraordinary. Yet when these things have happened, we don't demand extraordinary evidence, whatever that means. We just demand sufficient evidence, or the kind of evidence you would expect that kind of anomaly to leave behind. For the Big Bang, it's cosmological evidence, and for the lottery, maybe my fat bank account or some news footage of me dancing with a winning lottery ticket. And this is the Achilles heel of Hume's evidential critique of miracles. See, the probability of an event has to take into account the specific facts and not just the abstract odds. Extraordinary things happen all the time, and we don't discount something we have good evidence to believe simply because the odds of past observation are stacked against it. So that's strike two for the problem of miracles. Now you could try and attack the testimony of the eyewitnesses in the case for miracles. After all, people are capable of deceit, of being deceived, or of falsely inferring a miracle out of scientific ignorance. But the people in the Bible were not pre-scientific ignoramuses. When the angel Gabriel approaches the Virgin Mary and says she is to be with child, she doesn't blindly accept this claim as normal, everyday stuff. She asks the obvious biological question, how can this be since I am a virgin? It's on the basis of what she did know about the birds and the bees, not scientific ignorance, that she inferred that something special, something miraculous must be taking place. So when critics assume that Jesus' contemporaries had no knowledge of the natural order, that empty criticism tends to be nothing more than chronological snobbery. Furthermore, the character of the eyewitnesses to Jesus' resurrection, whose lives were catapulted by this miraculous encounter onto a path of virtue, when then coupled together with their willingness to suffer for those claims, these things mitigate against them being deceivers. And to give good evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, there's only two things that his friends needed to be able to competently testify to in court. That they were sure he was dead after his resurrection, and that afterwards they were certain to have spent time with him alive. This isn't complex stuff. You don't need a master's degree in biology to play that eyewitness role. Which is why it seems to me that in the case for Christianity, the problem of miracles has struck out. You can rationally believe in miracles, but that depends entirely on the evidence. Wisdom dictates that we shouldn't blindly embrace miracle claims without exhausting naturalistic explanations. But nor should we exclude them out of hand. But since truth invites questioning, if there are good reasons to believe in God as part of the background evidence of our universe, and if the miracle is set against a religiously significant backdrop in order to send a clear message, like with the resurrection of Jesus, and if the quality of the specific evidence for this historical anomaly is strong in the eyewitness accounts, then the calculus dramatically tilts towards the resurrection. There is no rational reason for you not to believe in miracles. So why not launch your own investigation to see if Jesus' miracles are worth believing?
Dan here from Questioning Christianity. Thanks so much for checking us out. We are all about helping you connect the Christian story to life's deepest questions. So if you're enjoying the content, make sure you subscribe and click the bell on YouTube, and then go ahead and follow us on socials.